Welcome, everyone, to the World Food Program and Public Foundation's executive briefing. We have convened this executive briefing because food security is no longer simply a humanitarian concern. It has become strategic infrastructure. The ability to keep food moving during the times of crisis now influences the economic stability, regional security, public health, and social resilience. In today's interconnected world, keeping food moving means keeping societies functioning. Today's crises rarely occur in isolation. Conflicts disrupt trade, disease weakens the vulnerable food systems, climate shocks intensify displacement, supply chains amplify each of these challenges. Together, they create humanitarian consequences that no single institution can solve alone. As the concept note for this briefing underscores, localized emergencies can quickly create regional and global humanitarian and economic impacts, making preparedness and partnerships more important than ever. The World Food Program operates at the front lines of these challenges, delivering life-saving assistance in more than 120 countries and territories. But responding effectively requires more than humanitarian resources alone. It requires collaboration across sectors, combining public leadership with private innovation, logistics, technology, and flexible capital. That is why we are here today. Public Foundation was created to help build the partnerships that multilateral institutions increasingly require. Our role is to convene governments, multilaterals, the United Nations, philanthropy, family offices, private sector, technologies around practical solutions that move from dialogue to implementation. Through the Family Office Program and the Sustainable Development Network, we are bringing together leaders who recognize that their capital, expertise, and global networks can play a meaningful role in strengthening humanitarian response and long-term resilience. Today's conversation is designed to begin that process of strategic engagement. It is an opportunity to engage areas of alignment and create partnerships that can help keep food moving and communities resilient when they need it the most. The objective is central to today's convening and to the engagement and the follow-up that will follow. We are privileged to be joined with senior leaders from the World Food Program, our friends, our partners, who will share insights into the global hunger outlook, the operational realities of responding to rapidly evolving crises, which is happening every day, and the practical ways that partners can contribute through financing, through logistics, through technology, and strategic collaboration. Everyone here and in our networks can do something. Everyone can help collaborate and bring strategic resources to the table. Today's objective is not to simply understand the challenges. It is to identify where your institutional capabilities can strengthen one of the world's most critical humanitarian operations. Because the future of humanitarian response will depend not only on the public resources, but how effectively we mobilize private leadership, innovation, and partnerships. This is the opportunity that brings us here today. It is now my great pleasure to turn this conversation over to Virginia Vilar Arribas, Director of Private Sector Partnership Service at the World Food Program. Virginia.
Hi, Sergio, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Let me start. Thanking Sergio, thanking Lawrence, and thanking our friends and almost family of public for giving us this opportunity. We signed about a year ago. Soon will be a year ago. This MOU. And we have been collaborating in order to facilitate that we can actually fight hunger together. And this is one important step of that journey. Let me also thank each of you for giving us an hour of your time. I know how precious this is, and I know which audience we are, even if I don't see you, which is a pity. I would love to see each of your faces. Sergio knows I'm very much of a person, and I hope I can meet you in person at any of the opportunities that public gifts us with. But I want to thank you for your time, for your interesting, and for caring. Today, I just wanted to introduce you're going to hear from some of our best experts, and I'm going to introduce them for a moment in a moment. But let me tell you, I mean, mainly three things. I'll start with a simple. Well, actually, I will start with a bit of an introduction. I work with private sector partnerships, but for the last 21 years, actually, I worked in the field. I have been in working in Russia, in Ukraine, also with the latest emergency and current war. I have been in Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, the Maghreb, Burundi, Congo and other places, and Afghanistan. So I've been very much in the field and now dealing with private sector partnerships and with philanthropy. Now I wanted to start with a statement. I know that if you are here and if you're attending this is because you care about hunger or because you are interested about hunger. And I wanted to start with a simple truth. Hunger can be ended and not reduce, not manage. Hunger can actually be ended. And I know that sounds ambitious, but it isn't a dream. We actually prove every day, and we have 18,000 people in the field that are working for that with plenty of partners, with hundreds of partners, local partners, international partners, to make it a reality every day and to prove every day that this is possible. Now, it cannot happen if we don't work together. Now, let me also bring you a little bit to the field with us in this trip. And here we have Afghanistan, actually, a couple of pictures of Afghanistan, the tracks, but it's also the lady, and these are pictures we took in at the bottom right. We also have Syria and we have Gaza. Some of the operations that where we're because the World Food Program is expertise is working on those environments. So if we are here today, it's because we want to talk about how we help people like this. So I said, hunger can be ended. We can do all something about it, and we have plenty of examples. And I'll pass it to my colleagues to give you some of those examples, whether it's in Bangladesh with anticipatory action, where we can actually tackle hunger before and support people before an emergency like a flood strikes or a drought strikes, for instance, in the Horn of Africa, or like, for instance, on a school meals, where we can tackle hunger at a very early age and promote education and nutrition and other issues. And for instance, another example that we can say we can use to show that we can reverse hunger, we can end hunger, is what we have been doing in Sudan, where last year at this time we had about 1.4 million people that actually were dying of hunger, and we managed to reverse that trend. But I will leave that a bit to my colleagues. Now, the other statement I wanted to say out of three is that hunger is not, as Sergio said, is not only a humanitarian issue, is not something only the World Food Program and other agencies and other NGOs work with. It's something that matters to everyone, has an impact to everyone, and that we should all do something about. It's something, hunger has a clear impact on stability, whether it's security or whether it's economic stability. Everything, whether it's health, education, work, peace, is built on food. And if we don't have whether it's on climate, I hear in COP statements, a farmer cannot be green if it's on the red. Whenever people are hungry, we say there are three options. They flee because they are desperate and they look for other options to feed their children, and therefore you have displacement, internal migration, then external migration and immigration, or they fight they flight or they fight, because then they do whatever they have to do, and we probably all would do, to feed their families. So they flight, they fight, or they die of hunger, and that's something that has an impact. At the end, is at the essence of our basic needs, and is at the essence of peace, and secure stability. When families can't eat, children can't learn, and people leave their homes, and instability follows. So just one, and we have this slide just here to talk about. Our colleagues are going to give you a bit more details. But the World Food Programme has the mandate of working on this, working on hunger, and has the mandate of working actually in the most difficult places and the most um, challenging environments, whether it's because of security or whether it's because of logistics. And that's our expertise, also to support others to get there. And we do that at the very global level. Last year, we covered more than 120 million people. Whenever we have more money, we have even covered 160 million people in 120 countries. And we do that in many, many different ways. We are a Nobel Peace Prize, as I mentioned before, and we also have a role of enabling others in terms of logistics and telecommunications. I can tell you more about it after that. But let me then pass the floor with this introduction. Basically, the good news, the bad news, is the situation of hunger has hardly ever been worse. And Jean-Martin is going to talk about this also with figures. The good news is we can do something about it. It's not inevitable. Action is possible, and it's possible for every single one of us. And you, as family officers, have even a particular role to play. But we will talk about it just afterwards. So let me stop here for the moment and introduce three colleagues that are going to speak. If they can put their screens up, then I'll start with Jean-Martin Bauer, who is our Director of Food Security and Nutrition Analysis. Basically, he watches where hunger is rising and why. Then we have Ana Fernandez, our Chief of Program and Support Unit. She is in the Emergency Preparedness and Response, and she helps make sure that when a crisis strikes, we're on the ground within hours, not weeks, hours. And then Fiona Guy, our Head of Philanthropy. She works with families, foundations around the world, and she will share some concrete steps of what can we do about it. So Jean-Martin, let me start with you. Could you begin by giving us the global picture? What is the situation of hunger? What has changed in the last years? And what should private sector partners understand about the next 6 to 12 months? Over to you.
Well, thanks, Virginia. I'd like to start by emphasizing that there's a very positive story around hunger. If you look at what hunger indicators were like 100 years ago, they were a lot worse than today. So don't buy anyone telling you that this is the worst ever. It's not. The levels of hunger that the world experienced during the El Niños of the late 19th century or during the world wars is nothing to do with the hunger today. Hunger today is a problem that we just haven't been able to tackle. It's a problem we haven't been able to resolve fully. And unfortunately, we really are struggling to defeat the tail end of hunger. What I'd like to do in the few minutes I have is share some key stats with you. The way we measure hunger worldwide is through a system that we share with other UN agencies and with the major NGOs and the major countries of the world. It's called the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification. It's a 5-point scale. Phase 1 in the scale is normal. Phase 2 is stress. 3 is crisis. 4 is emergency. And 5 is a catastrophe. And if there's enough evidence, that's called a famine. Since the system has existed, and it's existed for more than 20 years, there have been 5 famines declared. There was one in Somalia in 2012, South Sudan in 2017, South Sudan again in 2020, Sudan in 2024, then Gaza last year, just last summer. So famines are few and far between, but unfortunately we had 2 at the same time in 2025 in Gaza and in Sudan. And that shows that we're not headed in the right direction. We do have enough food to feed 10 billion people on this planet, but it's just not distributed well enough, and conflict and the different shocks that the world is going through are impacting the poorest first. Now, to get a sense of the data, I'd like to share the Hunger Map Live with you. The Hunger Map Live is one of our key data tools at the World Food Program. I'd like to invite you to check it out on your own devices. If you go to hungermap.wfp.org, you will see it. Here it is. What the Hunger Map Live shows you are the number of people who are food insecure worldwide, 266 million, according to the latest global report on food crises. That's in 47 countries. The Hunger Map Live will also offer you a trend. You can see how that's changed in the past few years. One of the key issues that we've had with the data on hunger is that the number of countries reporting in has shrunk because funding for data collection is becoming more and more difficult, and countries are dropping out. We had 6 fewer countries report in last year, and in the 10 years of this report, of the global report on food crises, and you see the data on the screen, this is the lowest number of countries that has contributed to the report. But the key factors are right here. It's conflict. This is the number one reason behind hunger in our age, but also weather extremes. Economic shocks also play a key role. Now, there have been 2 major phenomena that have driven acute hunger in the past few months. You've had the escalation and the conflict in the Middle East. That's had an impact on economic indicators, on energy markets, on global food markets, on supply chains, and we're seeing what's going on in terms of impacts. But you also have an El Nino that's shaping up, and an El Nino is a warming of the waters of the South Pacific that drive dramatic impacts in meteorology worldwide. And when rains fail, that causes impacts on people's welfare. Let me show you the countries we're most worried about in the next 6 months. You see them on the map now. The countries of highest concern, you see them in dark blue. That's Nigeria, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, and Palestine. These are places where you've got people in IPC 5. Remember that five-phase classification I mentioned. So these are people who are really on the edge. Other countries are also mentioned as hotspots in this report. You can explore them again in the Hunger Map Live and understand why they're mentioned. But the story is that between June and November, this is where we should be prioritizing our resources. We also have an exploration of the key drivers behind hunger worldwide on this Hunger Map Live. If you click on the Climate Explorer, you're starting to see the impacts of the El Nino as they play out. What I'm showing you right now shows that you've got countries facing drought, facing dry conditions. They appear in brown. You're seeing parts of Central America, parts of the Caribbean, Central and Eastern Africa showing up as being in drought, in Southeast Asia as well. Some of these are actually facing 2 things at the same time, which is higher energy prices, higher fertilizer prices, and a drought at the same time. And that's the case in some of these countries right here. There are flood effects being noted in the case of Pakistan and Cote d'Ivoire, but what we're seeing here is a typical El Nino signature, and watch out, an El Nino can really drive food aid needs upwards and drive up food insecurity. If you look at the economy, what you see on this view of the hunger map is the number of people living in acute, in under high food inflation. So these are countries with food inflation above 15%. You only had a handful at the start of the year. It was usually Venezuela with a very, very high rate of food inflation, and Iran itself. But now we're seeing more and more countries fall into that territory of being above 15%. And that's, to us, is a warning sign. Nigeria fell into that category. Ethiopia fell into that category after events in the Middle East pushed prices up. I'd encourage you to visit the Hunger Map Live. It's updated on a real-time basis. It's a great resource to understand how many people are hungry, where they are, what the hotspots are, and what we can all do to respond. I'll end there and turn it back to Virginia. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Martin. Super useful. Let me remind you, I think you have seen it here. but feel free to start passing any questions that you have, any comments, as I think some of you have started doing at the chat. And at the end, so we'll have Anna, we'll have Fiona, and then we'll pass to you for questions and answers for our speakers, but also comments. So don't hesitate to use it, and let me pass to Anna. And Anna, tell us a little bit more about when a crisis begins. What must happen in the first few hours? We know the first few hours are essential, but what decisions, what systems, what do we do? What do we need to do? Over to you, Anna. And also, what are the main crises? Tell us, give us a few of the examples, please.
Thanks, Virginia, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending where you are dialing from. So yeah, a lot keeps us, awake at night. So basically, in terms of the 72 hours after a crisis, this is very important because the sooner we can respond, the more lives we can save, and the quicker populations will recover. So it's very important for us that we are able to assist as rapidly as possible. So what is key within, the first 72 hours is really to have a clear idea of the needs of the populations affected, of the context, what's working, are markets functioning, are roads passable, do we have access, or is it blocked by, warring parties? All of this we need to know to make sure that we can estimate numbers, that we can estimate or we can analyze, the appropriate response. WFP can respond in a variety of ways. We can provide in-kind assistance when markets are not functioning or the food is not available. We can provide cash assistance when markets are functioning, and this would be our preferred modality when possible, because that gives our beneficiaries that extra choice and dignity to be able to actually choose what they need. But we can also provide nutrition support if we see that children are malnourished. This is a critical concern of us in some context. We can then, we need to understand, whether we can deliver by road, whether we need air assets. In some instances, we also have to rely on planes to deliver food, and even to drop it from the sky in areas where we don't have secure access. So we don't look for perfect information. We try to actually gather as much as possible to make sure we have a clear operational overview of what's the ideal response, but we need to act quickly so we don't wait too long. The response can take different shapes. It can be a month, it can be 3 months, depending on the context. What's really critical is that we prepare. We don't go basically to an emergency without already having a lot of capacity in place. We are operating in 100 countries. We have team of 22,000 staff that are mostly deployed in the field. And this is not even in, the country capitals. One of our strengths is that we have teams in the deep field that can already, be ready to assist. We also have teams that can deploy, they are on call and can deploy within 72 hours to support these countries if they need support. Another thing that is important in WFP is our logistics capacity. We do have a huge logistics platform. We can do larger scale procurement, warehousing, transport, and all the way to the beneficiaries. We have an end-to-end system that allows us to actually act very, very quickly. So all of this allows us actually in WFP to react quickly to emergencies. And just some examples maybe of, to give you or to illustrate how we can do this. For example, in Gaza, right after the conflict escalated, we were able already to position some stocks, ready to eat foods, already provide hot meals to people who were already seeking refuge in shelters. That was really, really critical as things really escalated. It was important for us also to be able to quickly switch from one modality to another, because the security context changes quite rapidly in some of these contexts. And so for us, it's very important that we can do cash, that we can do in-kind. And sometimes we use innovative approaches like bakeries to make sure that, we can avail hot meals and staple foods for the communities. And in doing so, we also try to support as much as possible the local economies. Another example may be how we are supporting the Democratic Republic of Congo. Another very, very complex context, and maybe an example of where different crises converge. It's not only conflict, but it's compounded by many other drivers of food insecurity. It's climate, it's displacement, is people being pushed out from their fields due to security. And now, as you know, we have an Ebola outbreak that is quite serious. And the way we are supporting goes beyond just food deliveries. It's very important for us to support these efforts, because it also supports the containment of the spread of the disease. When we are able to provide food for patients, but also for their caregivers and their families, we are avoiding that people move, displace further, putting more people at risk. So very important for us as well to support kind of public health emergencies. We don't only do this for our own kind of operations, but we also use our logistics for other organizations. For example, in this case, WHO or Africa CDC. Just making sure that we use also our air assets to, for example, deliver medical equipment, etc. So there's different ways and in which we operate, and again, depending on the context. But again, I think the strength of WFP definitely is having the team, the people, and the operational footprint that is close to the beneficiaries. Let me pass it on to Virginia.
Thank you so much. And actually, I was going to ask you about, you talked a little bit about Ebola. And in Ebola, is enabling that logistics capacity, one of the, whether it's Congo, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a conflict like Gaza or Sudan, like Ukraine. But you talked about Ebola. We're supporting others with logistics. Maybe just to finish with you, and I'll go back to Jean-Martin on data, and maybe to finish also a little bit more on the context. But tell us just a bit of what have we been doing in Venezuela in places like an earthquake.
Thanks. So yeah, Venezuela is another example of how preparedness really works. We were able to start supporting and delivering assistance within 72 hours of the earthquakes that devastated La Guaira and other areas of Venezuela. We had already a program in place, so we had our team. We had an ongoing program, a school feeding program, which is the program that was running already. And because of that, we already had some stocks in country that we were able to deploy rather quickly to start supporting families right away. So we started with sort of hot meals and supporting shelters and community kitchens where people could actually have a hot meal. So we are scaling up. I think we've already managed to assist about 100,000 people. We're looking into 500,000 the next few weeks and months because the impact has been really catastrophic for many of these families. And so, yeah, we're also trying to look at different modalities, maybe switching to cash at some point, just to make sure that people can recover as quickly as possible. We're supporting other agencies as well, as Virginia, you mentioned, thanks to our logistics capacity. But yeah, again, preparedness, very important to act quickly.
Preparedness, speed. So try to prepare as much as possible before the earthquake, before the emergencies. Speed is very important. Agility, logistics is essential. Access. But let me go, and thank you so much, Anna. Let me go into data a little bit, and I know Jean-Martin was writing here a little bit more about data. How do we use data? And I wanted to ask you two questions, a little bit more about how do we use data, and you can put here, I think we have here a link, but also tell us a little bit more about something that is always in the news. Strait of Hormuz, Middle East escalation. How has this affected food security and stability worldwide? Over to you, Jean-Martin.
Well, thanks, Virginia. So the how do we use data? It's simply our GPS here at WFP. We are an operational agency, so we need to be able to assess what's happening and what might happen next. And a very good example of that, Virginia, is what happened in the Middle East. When the escalation started late February, we saw the shipping in the Strait of Hormuz be extremely disrupted. We saw WFP operations in the region be disrupted, energy markets being impacted, food markets being impacted in fragile countries. So what we did was look at the data that we have as WFP, and we do collect data in very many countries. We have a considerable data footprint, and we used a model to predict how the situation would occur using certain assumptions. And we assumed, and this was the planning we did in very early March, that the barrel of oil would remain above $100 until the end of June. And we modeled out what that would mean for fragile countries. And we projected that 45 million people would fall into acute food insecurity in that scenario. And I think what that did was bring home to the agency and to our partners what that developing scenario, and this was in early March, would imply for WFP. It meant that it really moved the needle in terms of needs for food assistance, and it prompted us to look at what we needed to do about it. And we ended up doing deep dives in different countries that were affected by the effect of this conflict on supply chains and on prices. We looked at Somalia. We did a deep dive in Afghanistan. We also looked at Sri Lanka, very much affected because of its close trading relationships with Iran. So this is how the team here in Rome and also outposted throughout the world supports this agency. It helps us do something called strategic foresight, which is understand how the world is changing and how it might impact our ability to fulfill our mandate. So again, data is the very lifeblood of this agency. We're good at it, and we're quite keen on sharing the data that we have and the knowledge we acquire with other actors. Back to you, Virginia.
Thank you so much, Jean-Martin. And I'm just noting here, I think Ryan, Jean-Martin has addressed your question. Mary and Joe, thank you very much for your comments. Renat, 14 years old. I'm really impressed. That's probably one of the youngest youngest persons in the audience are very impressive. You start early. Excellent. I wanted to finish our talk and open afterwards for more questions and answers with Fiona more on action. Fiona, based on what we've heard, based on your experience, what is your advice? Where can family offices and other private sector partners be? What can they do? How can they be most useful to support and to end hunger together?
Thank you, Virginia. I'll keep this practical because the honest answer for those who are joining today is that it depends on you. Very broadly speaking, family offices and private sector partners can do things governments and large institutions often cannot. You can move quickly before a crisis is even declared. You think in decades, not budget cycles. You can back new ideas and prevention work that traditional funding often can't support. And because you're usually more flexible than larger institutions, you can help us respond where needs are greatest. So, for example, in emergencies like Venezuela that Anna mentioned, flexible funding is the single most useful thing we receive. It lets us act in the first hours of a crisis before appeals have even been launched. But beyond that, it also lets us test an idea, prove it works, and then bring in much larger resources behind it, like public funding, for instance. But this isn't just about money. Many families own businesses in shipping, technology, food, media, and some lend us logistics expertise. Some put their data teams to work with ours, and some lend their voice. And this can open rooms we cannot open for ourselves. There is also simple, immediate ways to get involved. For instance, through our Share the Meal app. I think, the QR code Elisa is bringing up. You can help feed a person through that app from your phone for just 80 cents as we speak. But that said, the best partnerships don't begin with us presenting a menu. They begin with us listening. And different families care about different things: education, children, climate, logistics, technology, impact investing, a number of things. And we build from what matters most to you. So there is no ask today and no expectation. If something you've heard has resonated, we'd be very happy to continue the conversation, and our details are on the QR code on the closing slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think we have about 18 minutes left, and we wanted to hear from you. I think we have had a couple of questions here, but I encourage you to make your comments. To see we kept, and our colleagues have been keeping the presentation short so that you can actually tell us a little bit more. I can see here, what role has the World Food Program taken using satellite image and Earth observation? I think Jean-Martin has started with that a little bit more on satellite imagery and Earth observation data. How has it changed stakeholders, multilateral corporations, and investors' perspective? I think that's you have started explaining. I don't know whether Jean-Martin, you want to give us maybe a little bit more detail about what partners do we have. We are doing that. We have partners that help us with satellite information, with GPS. We also have a lot of data that comes from the ground, isn't it? Maybe can we combine that question with the capabilities that we most need from partners? And I'm going to address this one to Jean-Martin, if you can help us with these two questions.
Okay, thanks, Virginia. And these are great questions. The fact of the matter is we're facing a data drought in the humanitarian sector. You've all heard about the funding cuts that have affected the humanitarian space. What it means is that primary data is less available right now for agencies like ours. Now, remote sensing is a key information source. I talked about it in the chat. It's something we've been doing for a very long time. We've got great platforms to share the information. We also pre-process the information here at WFP to share it outside, including with governments and many other users. So the capabilities we have also help the broader community. But that needs to be complemented with primary data, and that means nutrition surveys, measuring the weight and the height of children under 5. That's a key indicator for WFP and many other agencies. We need to be able to go to households and ask how they're purchasing the foods that they consume, what types of foods that they've been eating, how are they coping with food shortages. That type of data is becoming more and more difficult to acquire because the resources are fewer. Now, compared to 2024, WFP's footprint in terms of data collection in 2025 shrank by about 1/3. So we were collecting more than 1 million questionnaires per year. That was down to 800,000, and it will probably reduce again this year in 2026. So what we need to do is keep the data flowing. We're hoping to convince the private sector to bring their data to the humanitarian space so that we can use data from mobile phone companies, from satellite imagery companies, from others that have data. We don't want the private data of anyone, of course, but any data-driven insight that could be used by the humanitarian community is more than welcome at this stage, because it helps us prioritize the data that the WFP acquires through its own purposes or from others. It's always there to help us make the best choices. You saw that according to the Hunger Map 5, 266 million people around the world are acutely food insecure. We only have the resources for about 100 million this year. So how do we get to the right people? How do we get to the most vulnerable? The answer will come through largely through the data that we're able to collect and the insights we're able to gain. And one of the key wins we're looking for is to bring private sector data into the humanitarian space, to keep training our AI, keep training our predictive algorithms to direct resources to those who need it most.
Thank you so much, Jean-Martin, and this is super helpful. We also have a question, another very good question. We focused in this presentation on emergency, and your question, or question of one of you, has been how do we balance immediate emergency assistance with long-term investment in local food systems and community resilience? And let me start, but then Jean-Martin, I know Jean-Martin and both and Anna can join. We have focused on emergency today. We have focused on what is the status of hunger, what affects hunger, what does it mean for us, and what does the World Food Programme have on emergencies. And if we are known, and we are not very, very known because we don't spend a lot of resources on comms as well, but if we are known for emergency, and we talked about this, but we spend a lot of data and quite a lot of resources and a lot of our time on what we call resilience. You see our motto, it says saving lives and changing lives, really improving lives. And we do that through different programs. There is a program that is very, very, very nice and very, very useful, which is school meals. And we support in total 109 million children, whether it's with our own programs directly, always in coordination, but that more directly, implementing the programs directly, that's about 20 million children. And in coordination with the countries, about 90 million children. And we have a fantastic coalition for school meals that has more than, I think it's more than 110 members now, and has become even bigger. School meals bring so many benefits in so many ways. But at the end, I can maybe give the example of a mother that says, look, she came here for the meal. Was talking about her daughter. It's like she came here for the meal, and I'll have an educated girl that is going to have a future. So it's one of the best instruments for those children that have families that have no means, to actually ensure that they keep children at school. A lot of parents, whenever they cannot feed their children, instead of sending them to school, if there is no meal given, they send them to work. They sell them, like in Afghanistan. I have seen that. They put them to work, or they are left in the street. And then it's also a very, very good way, if you have a meal, for the parents to keep them at school and to protect them. So this is one of the programs. Happy to tell you a lot more about how this protect children, keeps them medicated, and gives them a future, apart from the impact that it has on nutrition and other areas. We have nutrition programs, very, very important. And the return on investment of these programs is fantastic. We can basically say for school meals that every dollar brings up to $37 and return on investment in many different ways. It's from $7 to $37 for every dollar we invest in there. But also for nutrition, every dollar you invest in nutrition, on prevention, on management of malnutrition, brings about $23 on investment. And this is, we can give you plenty of data on that. But basically, we do school meals, we do nutrition. We work a lot with farmers, supporting farmers in different ways to, whether it's plan a better crop or store things better, dry things better so that they don't rot, so that they can keep them for the lean season and sell it, to a higher price. We support farmers all across, even with what we call adaptations, supporting them to maybe level the land so that they are not affected by flood. We have plenty of programs on resilience and of food systems. And as Anna said, we are supporting also, the local communities, the local economies, and the localization. As much as possible, we buy things locally and from the farmers. So basically, we support them, strategize, we support them with the land, and we support them through also buying from them. So we have other programs. I'm not going to bore you with that. I don't know whether colleagues Jean-Martin or Anna want to join and add something on that, or we can also have other questions. Jean-Martin, over to you.
I can come in quickly with an example from Haiti, where I was before coming to Rome. The challenge in Haiti was always being able to bring a healthy school meal to as many children as possible in a context of very limited access in the country. And what we did in 2022 was try to shorten the supply chain by purchasing the food locally. And we were able to purchase food from local Haitian farmers and turn our supply chain from 80% international to 80% local in just 3 years. And what that does is it creates jobs, it creates income for local farmers, and it creates better nutrition for the children in the school meals program. And all this at a time of great vulnerability in the country, at a time of instability in the country. So these are things that WFP is able to do to, again, inject some sustainability in the middle of an emergency response. Thank you.
Excellent example. And Jean-Martin, we didn't give the background, but he has been in some of the most difficult places. Haiti is definitely one of the most difficult places and emergencies, but also in Congo, Brazil, and many others. I have here a couple of other questions. Let me ask. Actually, let me leave the one. What practical steps should an interested organization take to explore a partnership with the World Food Programme? Fiona, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, I would answer because of time. You have my email. I don't know, Elisa, if you can put that in the chat. We can have a conversation to understand the outcomes that you're interested in, what's important to you. Are there any areas that you want to see a change or a difference in? And we can have a conversation, hear you out, and we can take it from there.
Excellent. So look, contact us. We'll share our contacts again. And please do contact us. A bilateral conversation is the most important, and we want we know you have your objectives with your family offices, and we want to know what success looks like for you and see whether we can join those efforts and that care with what we do. Now, I have a couple of questions. Anna, quickly, what is the biggest bottleneck in the logistics coordination in the first 72 hours? What are the biggest bottlenecks? Anna, very shortly.
No, thanks. There can be many depending on the context. It could be basically one actually is not so much about the logistics itself, but access. That if I can tell you one critical bottleneck is having access to certain areas in hard to reach areas, in if there is active conflict, or if there is bureaucratic bottlenecks all the way to certain areas. That is really a critical impediment. Sometimes it's also the terrains. It could be that its roads become impassable, and so sometimes we do have to, knowing that, we preposition food before rainy season, because we know that roads can be impassable through some of the year. But for us, critical is to have the resources in time to be able to be effective, and that's for us, again, like the predictability of funding can enable us actually to overcome some of these issues. But just to mention two.
And this organization, and that's why it's so important. I have been in so many emergencies. The main thing is a lot of people want to help, and if we don't coordinate it, and if you don't coordinate that, it actually can be a nuisance. It can actually be worse to be wanting to help if the aid doesn't get to where it needs to. So coordination, logistics, definitely access and security is so important. Funding, so that's why it's so important. And many, we said 72 hours, but most of the times we are there within the first hours because we have been there before. We have a couple of questions and only 4 minutes. I have to hear that maybe the role of household and community food production within food security efforts. Jean-Martin, just quickly, I give you 1 minute to see, we have here beyond emergency food assistance. Are there any programs to help people grow even a portion of their own food? The answer is yes, but I see Lawrence. We have 4 minutes and Lawrence is going to tell you. So maybe we can answer those questions. Lawrence, shall we answer those questions in writing to our listeners? Is that where you put your camera on?
Yep, sure. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Jean-Martin, I think we do have 1 minute for this answer. The answer is yes. And do you want to, Jean-Martin, to come in
Right.
on this?
No, there definitely is scope to boost local production, and it's important to work on local capacities. You hear the word localization a lot. WFP believes in it, and we need to make sure that people on the ground in affected communities, in communities affected by emergencies, have the possibility of growing more of their food. We need to invest in the food systems. And what WFP also does is cash transfers. When you do a cash transfer, and that's about half of what we do in terms of transfers to people in need, when we provide $1 of cash transfers, and we do $2 billion worth of cash transfers every year, $1 transferred through a cash transfer generates another $1 in induced economic activity, and that's more jobs, that's more income, that's economic activity for retailers, for food processors, for actors of the food systems, and that's a critical intervention that supports the entire food chain from that farmer to the processors and retailers. It's quite strategic.
Fantastic. Jean-Martin, so this is the last question we can cover, and I'm going to, we only have 2 minutes, so let me pass the floor to Lawrence with a big thank you. Wrapping up, the situation is bad. The trend is very negative, but we can do something about it. Now, Lawrence, over to you.
Thank you, Virginia. And again, this is one area of development that, as you said right from the beginning, can be solved. With the amount of willpower and not just capital, but also technology and thought leadership, being able to connect the global community. So first off, I want to say thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Jean-Martin, Anna, Fiona, Sergio, and especially all those who have joined us here today. What we've heard is that food insecurity is not a single issue challenge. It's shaped by conflict, disease, climate, disrupted supply chains, and the speed at which resources can be mobilized. Effective response, therefore, requires more than funding alone. It requires preparedness, logistics, data, technology, and most importantly, partnerships. For family offices and private sector leaders, the opportunity is much more practical. You may be able to contribute flexible emergency capital, transportation, warehousing capabilities, data, technology, analytical tools, partnerships that actually create regenerative economics on the technology side, communication support, longer term investment. We have touched on some of the amazing programs that the World Food Program has and that we're developing together with FOSD in public. And anybody who's interested in learning more about that, is happy to reach out to us at Public and the World Food Program as well. But ultimately, there is a way for us to build out systems that will solve, the creation of resilient food systems. Through FOSD's role, Public's role is to help move this conversation from education to engagement and then ultimately activation. We work very closely with the World Food Program to follow up, and with every interested participant, if you've reached out your questions, they will make sure that they all get answers, and we look forward to reaching out directly to each and every one of you and figuring out how we can ultimately coordinate across. So we have contact information, so we'll be doing an outreach to make sure that everybody has a chance to have their voice heard, and we can understand where people actually sit within the ecosystem. There's no expectation that every participant is going to engage in the same way. The important next step is to simply begin a focused conversation, and we'll be reaching out to everyone. Again, thank you for your time, your interest, and your willingness to consider how your capital, expertise, and influence can help keep food moving with the world that needs it most. So, Virginia, back to you.
Thank you so much. And maybe what we could do is look, we are delighted that you're interested in this subject. That's the first step. There are many ways where you can have a role, whether it's funding, whether it's expertise, whether it's lending your voice, whether it's advocacy, and we are looking forward to doing that in coordination with this incredible platform that is Public.